Wargames operate in many ways like standard games, which means that the same principles apply to how players achieve their goals. One of the most important aspects of gaming is perhaps one of the least understood: tempo. Tempo in terms of gaming is mostly associated with chess. However, tempo also applies to wargames, along with most other games where movement is a key part of the mechanics. To gain the advantage in tempo means taking more control over the momentum of the game. A player gains tempo when they achieve their goal in at least one fewer move, while they lose tempo if it takes the player an additional move or more. A player can also gain tempo if they force their opponent to make an additional move that otherwise was not necessary. In terms of wargaming, gaining tempo can be achieved by the following means: developing your forces faster and more efficiently compared to your opponent, creating threats that cause your opponent to react while not costing you any additional movement, positioning forces that your opponent must respond to, and sacrificing units that cause your opponents to commit more of their material. Although it's not always true due to the wide variety of game conditions, it can be said that a player who has the advantage in tempo is most likely to win. Of course, there are exceptions, but for the most part it is advantageous to gain tempo when possible and practical. Although similar, tempo is different than initiative in one important way. Tempo is about time, while initiative is about control. You can look at it this way: when you gain tempo, you are getting ahead of schedule. You are using time to your advantage to achieve your goals faster. This means that you can develop your forces, create threats, and go on the offensive if desired within the structure of the game. To gain initiative is different in terms of gaining more territory, forcing your opponent to react to your moves, and taking greater overall control of what is happening. It is true that tempo and initiative are often linked. When you achieve your goals ahead of schedule, you are also increasing the initiative, which places you in greater control of what is happening. There are several ways to gain tempo when playing both offensively and defensively in the game. Everything starts with studying the victory conditions, identifying the key areas of the battlefield or location, and knowing the rules that govern the movement and abilities of your forces. To move for the sake of moving is not enough. Each move must carry some tangible value that translates to putting yourself in a better position during the game. Whether this movement helps free up more of your forces, captures important crossroads, towns, or other valuable assets, or causes your opponent to react to your movement is tied directly into the value gained from such actions. Tempo is most often not gained from a single big move or action, but a growing series of smaller moves or actions that build over time. In other words, you're trying to win the battle one move at a time, not all at once. By being patient, your opponent may cooperate and unwittingly assist in your victory. The downside of gaining tempo is that you often must take some chances that can backfire if the dice do not go your way or your opponent does something unexpected. Although this type of downside is easier to handle early on when you have more time to make corrections. Gaining tempo in wargaming often mimics the tempo seen in historic battles, when a fortunate event or faster movement of troops initiates a series of positive events that creates momentum. And once that momentum is established, it makes it easier for you to prevail. Thank you for watching. Check out our other videos on the Seek Out and Play YouTube channel. Plus, you can keep up with the latest news by visiting our Facebook and Twitter pages. And if you want to support the channel, we have a link to our Patreon page below. And I will see you next Wednesday.